Hey there, everyone, and welcome back to another video. Doing something a little bit different today, and I'm going to be going through a birth chart of someone who's been requested a few times for me to have a look at, and that's Lana Del Rey. To be honest, I've had zero idea of who she is. I'm used to analyzing the chart of metal musicians. So something a little bit different, entering into the pop genre this time. It was a lot of fun, and it's always wonderful as an astrologer to dive into the personality and life events of people through the eyes of astrology. So if you do like this kind of material, this is what we do in the Contemporary Astrology Program, which begins on Thursday, June 6th here in Australia. And if you're in other parts of the globe, which I know many of you watching are, that will start on Wednesday, the 5th. So I'm going to pop a link in the description box below where you can find out more information about the course, my approach. It's not purely one sort of division of astrology. So it's not purely Hellenistic. It's not purely modern. I blend in a lot of different astrological technique to get to where I'm going. So it's not obviously the only thing I'm doing different today. I'm working from a different computer. So same office, a different orientation. So welcome if this is your first time here. And if this is a regular channel for you, thanks for being here. I really do appreciate your time and attention. In the next few days, I'm going to be releasing my June Golden Circle material for members of that community that I have. So if you would like to be a part of the Golden Circle and get all the information for June, support, communication, community, and a bunch of extra resources to guide you through the month of June, do sign up. It would be wonderful to have you there, where I share so much more information, tips and tricks into navigating the sky. That's also a really great learning tool. If you kind of know the ropes of astrology, you feel kind of confident, but you would like to improve your delineations, some different angles, and have that support of a group community as well, join us. It's a great place. It's a lot of fun. Alrighty, Lana Del Rey. So as I said, I did not know her really at all. I've had a few people mention we're kind of similar. I'm like, okay, I'll let you decide that. But anyway, enough of that. So let us share the screen and we'll have a look at her chart. It was pretty interesting actually to take a look at it. If you're not aware of who she is, she's a singer, fairly much in the pop genre, but not your average, she's no Taylor Swift. Okay, so she's just got that bit of a melancholic, moody, tragic type of vibe to her, which we can definitely see in the birth chart there. So firstly, as an astrologer, your eye is always, I suggest it should always go in the direction of the ascendant. And that is going to really be your all roads lead to Rome area in every chart you look at. So you're going to want to look at what the ascending sign is, any planets located in that house, and of course, what the ruler is and where that's situated in the birth chart. So in Lana Del Rey's chart, obviously we have Scorpio rising. So Pluto is newly ingressed into Scorpio. So she's an early Pluto and Scorpio baby. Right in the middle, 15 degrees is the degree of the ascendant, conjoined the south node and closely configured to Saturn. So these are, three really tough features to have in the first house. They're not all bad, of course, but they are difficult. So we are going to have a certain broodiness, a Scupio, not Scorpio, Scupio-ness. There's going to be a level of intensity there that we're definitely going to see with the person. And, the Saturn in the first house can often be a certain melancholic. Saturn is cold and dry. So generally these people are a little bit the loner archetype. They can definitely, life is hard for them. They're not exuberant. They're not bright. They're not bubbly. It's a little bit more of a negating influence. And that can take place in terms of health, vitality, wellness, either in the physical, the mental, and in some situations, sometimes in both cases. We've also got the South Node there in the first, which can be quite a draining quality. So a draining of the vitality, feeling like I'm going to use the word selfish, but I don't mean it in that sense as how most people would describe it. It's more in a self-focused or a self-centered. This is Scorpio, so there's that kind of like circling in or that spiraling in on the self, very protective. And also, it's got that sort of dark, mysterious, moody type of energy to it. Now, when we look at where the ascending ruling planet is, it's Mars in Cancer. So we're looking for Mars, the traditional ruler of Scorpio. It's in Cancer. So that already is that position of being in fall, because it's opposite to Capricorn, the position that Mars finds its exaltation. Now, no one really likes to hear, particularly the ascendant ruler is in a position of fall or depression or even detriment. Now, this isn't a personality situation for her or for anybody who's got a similar configuration. It's just sort of describing that Mars is on the back foot, okay? There is a certain level of disability, in inverted commas, that there may be some challenges, some hurdles to overcome before the person finds their true north or finds what their purpose is. The energy of Cancer, kind of similar to Scorpio, but probably more so, is an energy that will spiral in on itself. Moody, definitely not direct in its energy. Okay. And that's not what Mars's main function is, right? Mars is, so imagine you're the general of an army and you tell a particular soldier, hey, go in that direction and start shooting over there. And then the soldier turns around and says, oh, what about that direction there? And I kind of really want to go in that direction, and sort of feeling like maybe I should go there first and then maybe there, so you get the gist, right? There's nothing wrong with that in real life. But in terms of what Mars wants to do, that's just contra to what Mars's primary role and function is. Now, in the sense that that's not a bad thing, I don't think it is bad. I've actually done a video on Mars in Cancer before, working with the worst planet in astrology. I'll find a link and I'll pop that in the show notes for you. It gives Mars texture. So if you've got Mars in Capricorn as the ruler of the ascendant, it's like you may move through life with a really straight line. This is the mountain, this is the peak, and I'm just going, right? It's very clear cut, it's very straight, knows what you're doing. And, it's just a tunnel vision, right? When we're talking about Cancer, you're going in the, you're circling around up and down and going through all the ways before you get to the place that you're going. So that's one of the ways I would describe Mars. It's texturized. It wants to feel its way through. It's very defensive, very protective, but it needs to feel its way through. And Mars is a challenge in this birth chart, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's a difficult or bad thing. Like, I think if we don't qualify things as good or bad, they just are. Like, at the end of the day, like it or not, we can't change our placements. There's also another configuration that makes Mars difficult, and that's its proximity to the sun. It's 8 degrees from the sun, which is at 0 Cancer. So it is moving into the position of combustion. So it's invisible. It's like trying to shoot your arrows in the dark or fire a weapon in the dark. So that's just an extra level of difficulty for Mars, from the perspective that when any planet, but in this particular case, Mars gets really close to the sun, it loses visibility. And when that's the ruler of the ascendant, it's literally saying that you may feel invisible. You might actually prefer that in some cases because that's your status quo. But there's a sense of feeling unseen, unheard, or at least subjectively, it feels that way. Now, when we look at the sun, Oh, so before I go on to that, Mars being in that position of combustion, the sun does move faster than Mars does. So they're going to form a new moon in about, 8-ish days time. So in about a week. And so this is really like Mars moving into its balsamic Mars phase, if you like. So from a synodic cycle position, Mars is spent. Like he is your mobile phone at the end of the day with 5% battery that's just going to, cark at any moment until it gets recharged. So there is a very a low vitality Mars there. So we've got that plus the configurations that we've already touched on the ascendant in the first house. So overall, we could kind of see that, two of the real key features of the chart, the first house and wherever the ruler is positioned, they're sort of compromised. They're not the most beneficial, at least on paper. And then, of course, the sun. The sun is actually really quite potent here. The sun in Cancer has no real dignity in of itself, but it is at that solstice cardinal point. So it's a very vital sun. It's in its position of joy. The sun finds joy in the ninth house. And the sun also occupies the Egyptian terms of Mars. So it's a fairly strong sun in that respect. The sun also rules the midheaven. So we can see that there. The ruler is the moon and it rules the midheaven. And then we've got the midheaven is ruled by the sun. So there is this exchange of lights. They don't form an aspect to each other, but there is that exchange. We can also see that Lana has a really positive planet here on the descendant, which is Venus in Taurus. It's also angular. So we've got the moon in Leo. So there is that sort of, even though I've got planets here that are a little bit hidden, a little bit compromised, not at their most vital, the sun is good. Like I really do like this sun. It's got a few things going for it, but that moon does want visibility. It's about 5 hours, or sorry, I should say 5 degrees or roughly 10 hours in real time away from being an official crescent moon phase. So she's still in officially the new moon phase, which does add a little extra layer of darkness or invisibility there. But in real time, we would see that first sliver of light in the moon when she was born. So if you were to look at the western horizon, we would see a little bit of that moon as that sun set that day. Now, as far as Mercury is concerned, Mercury, I won't go in this too much because it's a little bit more technical or this video would go forever. It is making a fairly magical feature here that's known as phasis or phasis if you're Australian. And that is, we can see that the Mercury is 16 degrees away from the sun. So it's visible, okay? And it will move increasingly into invisibility as the weeks progress, well, the days progress after birth. But that Mercury, despite being in a mute sign, is actually visible, okay? So if we were to look at this configuration at the day of her birth, we would maybe, if the conditions are right, see a little bit of a glimpse of Mercury as a nighttime evening star. So that does give Mercury a little bit more voice, or it's trying to say something before it sets, before it goes into the darkness, before it goes into the place that the ancient Egyptians called death, okay? So there's a lot of themes here about hiddenness, about depth, about darkness, about death. So just with those few little tidbits from the birth chart, we can start to get a little bit of an overarching theme about, what this person is all about, what Lana Del Rey is all about. So there's also some other aspects and a lot of other features that we will go into as well. But I want to also just do a little bit of a timeline for her, so you can, especially if you're a fan or you're, following her, you'll get a little bit of a feel for things. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to stop the share here, and I'm going to bring up a different screen for you so we can see what's going on. Now, if you're not, this is SolarFire. I get asked a lot what program you're using. This is SolarFire. I'm a PC person. I don't have Mac or Apple. I believe they have a version called, I think it's Astro Gold. It's meant to be pretty good, but I don't use it, so I can't help you there. So this is a tri-wheel, so it can be a little bit of overwhelming level of hieroglyphics if you're not used to looking at these. But it's a good way to just sort of animate things and get a bit of a feel for it. So I had a little bit of a good old look at Wiki to get a little bit of a timeline of just a few hit points and key points in the life. And that's what I want to go through with you there. It's one thing to look at someone's chart and go, blah, blah, and hey, isn't that good? But it's really great to be able to see things in action and how the moving sky through symbolic time and actual time can really activate things. And through analyzing the charts of celebrities, it can give us a little bit of an idea or inclination as to what the possibilities could be if you are looking at it for yourself, for your family, for your friends, and get a bit of a feel for, okay, well, this happened in Lana Del Rey's chart. There's a theme there. Okay, so it's a good learning tool. So when Lana Del Rey was about, it says 14 or 15, we don't seem to have an accurate age with this. She kind of went overboard with alcohol and needed to dry out and sober up, which I was like, wow, 14, 15. But anyway, it happens. So during those years, Lana Del Rey had entered, when you're 14, 15, you're going to enter into third house perfections, fourth house perfections. So it's really turning on Saturn for her in her birth chart. So those are going to be difficult years. Even without looking at that, we know when we're at around age 14, 15, you're going to go through the Saturn opposition years. In the chart that I featured here, Saturn's still at 28 degrees, almost 29 degrees of Aries. But during that 14, 15 age group or age bracket, we would know that we're going to have that Saturn opposition phase for her. So that's going to be hard. Obviously, we're going to have, well, there we go, Saturn's there, right on that natal Venus, sort of during that mid-year phase. So Saturn perfection year, that happens at 14 and 15 for her, and Saturn opposition at the same time. So that's not going to be the same for everybody, because, for some people it might be, a Sun Mercury period of time. So it's not going to be this amount of Saturn for every single person. You may also notice, if you're familiar with secondary progressions, is that Lana Del Rey also had the secondary progressed moon moving through Aquarius, over Jupiter, the IC, and all of that stuff there, and transiting Uranus, also triggering that. So obviously the moon moving through the fourth house, it's going to bring up a lot of stuff with family, a lot of stuff with home, and then Uranus and the South Node, sort of cleansing, purifying, and volatilizing that space. So to move into a boarding school, I know some people who have been there, and maybe not so much in the 90s, but it's not always the most pleasant experience there. So one of the reasons she went into that boarding school situation is because of needing to dry out because of alcohol. Because around that time, she started to realize that people die. Okay, her parents will die, she will die, and it just really preoccupied her. She romanticized death, and just really overwhelmed her. And I thought about that, and we can look at where that shows up in her birth chart. So she does have this Neptune-Pluto sextile, but a lot of people would have had that during that era of time with those two outer planets being active. But for Lana Del Rey, that aspect connects with her sun in, both ways. So we've got the trine to Pluto and the opposition to Neptune. So this, a big part of her identity at the time, the sun Neptune can have a predisposition to some like blurring the boundaries of who I am, or maybe having to dive into substances of various descriptions and then bouncing back out of it and to figure out who they are. And the sun Pluto just sort of diving right in there and being very sort of obsessed or overwhelmed by it. So the sun is hitting both Neptune and Pluto, which really kind of makes that Cancer sun a lot more potent than just a Cancer sun. And that Cancer sun is what rules her midheaven. And these are the sorts of themes, I guess, not knowing her professional image or her career terribly well, but it seems pretty obvious she does project a lot more sort of darker, romanticizing the dark, but in a more of a pop genre way, as opposed to maybe, the Scandinavian black metal people I would normally be analyzing here. But I think you get the gist. So there's a lot going on there. So if we fast forward some progressions here, just to give you a few tidbits of how this can all go together. And obviously, yes, it's a lot of layers. So if we move to 2004, she goes to, I'm assuming she's sobered up and sorted herself out by this stage, but she went into university or college for Americans and studied philosophy. So she majored in that because she wanted to know about God and science and the metaphysics of the two. And just having her sun, that point of divine spark and radiant essence, plus the ascendant ruler in the ninth, and of course Mercury's there too, but just those ninth house planets, there's, you're usually going to see something to do with education, religion, spirituality, philosophy. Those things, those themes are going to be featured in the life in some way, shape, or form. So what we can also see during this phase, if you're familiar with the concept of secondary progressions, the lunar phase is going to be so important for Lana Del Rey for two reasons. She's a Cancer, and the moon is in the 10th house. It's angular, and it's just a big deal. Like, I don't think I need to explain that too much more than, hey, yeah, it's a big deal. Important planets for her. So we can see that the moon phase is in the third quarter moon phase. Now, that is basically the moon half full and losing light. And oftentimes this can be a period in the life where you get a lot of stuff done. It's a very busy period because there's this awareness that you're losing light. So if you're already working with God, philosophy, feeling very overwhelmed and preoccupied with themes of death, I would imagine you would probably be getting a lot done during this phase. And it feels like she has. She started dabbling in music while she was studying at university. And one of these phases, you'll often see it in the textbooks as a crisis of consciousness. I don't really like that term because it's loaded and it doesn't really tell you a lot. But I feel like it's this, I'm at a certain age, and given she's only 19 here, she's still very young, but it's this feeling of time running out. There's this feeling that I've got a lot of energy, but I know that energy is going to dwindle or wane to a certain point. And the secondary progressed lunar phase really does describe the season of life that someone's in. So the light's still half full, but losing, as opposed to half full and gaining. If you are interested in just learning more about secondary progressions, I promise you, or the secondary progressed lunar phase in particular, it will transform your astrological predictions. It's incredible to just observe the life through the progressions. I'm in the balsamic moon phase right now, and oh yeah, I'm feeling it. So that's where she was in 2004. Now, if we fast forward this a little bit into about 2006 and 7, this is around the time she started to release a little bit of music. And she also embarked on her first public performance. So this was the time where she started to become visible. And so Saturn in Leo. Saturn in Leo struggles with visibility as a native of that placement. It can be a thing. So with Lana Del Rey, though, she's moving into that third quarter Saturn phase prior to the return. And this is a time where for her, visibility is really strong. So she's obviously making music that is getting noticed by people. Her image, Saturn in the first house is being noticed by people. So there's this visibility yet anti-visibility going on there as well. And so what you'll also realize is there's a really interesting configuration happening for her at this period of time. So I'm just going to get my drawing here. So not only has she got Saturn hovering over the moon, which is, it's hard. That's a very difficult situation anyway. So I don't know what was going on for her emotionally or in her personal life, but it may have been a challenge for her for sure. So we've got this Saturn feature here, and then we've also got this T-square with Jupiter. So there's a lot of triggers there, fixed triggers that, it's definitely worth noting. Her Mercury is in the mix there. So that's definitely, a symbol of, yeah, she's a singer. And not only is she a singer, but she's also got this very Saturnian edge, almost like if you know what's his name, like Roy Orbison, Johnny Cash, those like Men in Black types that had a very melancholic, moody, ethereal type of tone to their music. And I've listened to a few of her songs, and I guess, yeah, she certainly embodies that in a different way, but that the moodiness is there. We can also see that her ascendant, there's so many things to point out, but we can see that her secondary progressed ascendant has shifted signs. Her secondary progressed moon has also recently shifted signs. So big indicators that her life is most definitely changing. And that's when she really started to become a little bit known and just a little bit famous. But it was really the breakthrough came a little bit later. I believe that was around 2011. 2012. So when she was releasing a few like an album or two, and she started to become a little bit more known. From the research I did, it was in the November of 2012. So Saturn's in the first house via transit. She's in her Saturn return. Big time for anybody, but particularly when you've got Saturn on the ascendant. This was when she released an album or a song called Born to Die. It's definitely a signature for her. And it was also the most popular. So not only did she do all that in that year and the astrology that goes alongside it, but you can also see that's amplified. Hang on. Let me get because I remember this period of time in my own life. Eclipses were there. So this was in November, this all came to pass, and we had eclipses in November as well. So really highlighting Saturn, her Saturn return. We can see her secondary progressed moon has also returned, which, happens as a part of the Saturn return cycle. So there's a lot there happening for her big Saturn return stuff. And you do see that quite often in celebrities. Now, one other feature I thought that was really interesting, just to give you another little tidbit about her, was in 2019. So I noticed that at that point in her life, her secondary progressed Mercury that was visible when she was born has now stationed. So it's not there just yet, but 25 degrees of Mercury in Leo is the position where it's stationed retrograde. And it really kicked off in November of 2021. Now, when we're looking at Mercury retrogrades in real time, if it stations, a few days at 1 degree, and we stretch that out into years. And that's what secondary progressions do. So by 2019, Scorpio, so much Pluto and Scorpio on the screen there. Mercury in Leo has stationed on the degree of her midheaven. Okay, so stationed retrograde. So you could almost anticipate there would be something about a reversal, a change, something different happening with her career. And that did happen. So in 2019, she released, she made an announcement that she was going to release a spoken word album. That's something Henry Rollins also does, if anyone knows who he is. And very interesting, very different career direction. She also teamed up with some other people who have Leo midheavens as well, Courtney Love being one. And she also did a perfume ad or something or other for Gucci perfumes. So it was 2020 when that album got released, I believe. But it does go to show that there was a career direction change. It doesn't mean that everything's changed, but maybe more willing to try something new, to try something a little bit different, or go in a different direction in some way, shape, or form. So that pretty much sums up Lana Del Rey. So if you're a fan, do feel free to add something in the comments that maybe I've missed or overlooked, or if you've done some of your own research about her, I'd love to hear it. I hope you enjoyed this video as well, given you some food for thought about how to approach charts. I think you don't have to look at everything. You just really need to pick out some really key features and be able to build a story or a testimony around that for your chart, for your clients, and for the charts that you're reading. So again, if you are curious in learning more astrology with me, there is the Contemporary Astrology Program starting next week. And if you are, a little bit more in the intermediate, or even in the beginners, or even advanced, the Golden Circle is just going to help you explore astrology as it happens, of course, but also help refine your delineations and your techniques as well. So if there's anyone else you would like me to have a little look at in a future video, do feel free to pop them in the comments as well. It's always fun to look at examples of people that I don't know and whose careers I've not followed. But moving forward, I'm probably going to have summertime sadness in my head for the next few days. So I hope you enjoyed that, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.